Hi everyone. So a few years ago, when I was knocking around the Medina in Marrakesh, here in Morocco, a friend of a friend asked me to come and see his house. It was actually a very large house, and he called it a palace. I don't know if it was a palace, but it had the word palais in the title. And it was quite a grand house with some very lovely guest quarters, guest apartments. And over time, he told me, word had spread that this very lovely home with the word palace in the title had become something of a fascination for a minor member of a European royal family. And the minor member of the European royal family first got to hear about it and then began to invite himself to stay. And the friend of a friend who had invited me to tea one day showed me the palace, and he said, I don't know what to do. This man comes again and again and he invites himself. He eats all the food in the palace and won't leave and invites all his friends. And I tried to give suggestions. I tried to say, well, why don't you say that you've got no space because you've rented out parts of the palace, or you've got water leaks or electrical problems. And a little bit of time passed, and a few months later I visited again because I was in Marrakesh. And I asked whether the minor member of European royalty was still turning up and staying. And he said to me, the owner of the palace said, actually, the man has dropped to me like a hot coal because I did something a little bit unexpected. And I would call this thing he did a zigzag thing. He didn't want to offend the minor member of royalty, European royalty, but rather he wanted to get rid of him by treating him with awe and respect. And so he took the very worst suite in the house, in the palace, the very most wretched place. It was actually up in the attic, and it had been a room where in more recent times cobblers had a factory making sandals. I had been up there because I'd been interested in seeing the entire place on my first visit. And I'd seen what a wretched, spider-encrusted place it was. And the owner of the palace, on the second visit, he said what he had done was he had got a calligrapher to write in the most beautiful writing over the door of this suite, the royal suite of kings and queens. And he had written a legend that royalty had stayed in that suite over the centuries, which he, I think, had just made up. And so when the minor member of European royalty turned up, he said to the man, I don't know what his title was, maybe a prince, that it was fitting for him to stay there now that they had found that this suite in the attic, formerly a sandal workshop, was the royal suite, a suite fit for princes and for kings.